He says he spotted Eric Abril near Antelope Creek here when he just happened to take his dog outside to the backyard.
He wasn't looking up, he was looking around this way, and he was right there.
From his own backyard, Bill Sanchez saw the murder suspect at the center of a massive manhunt at about noon.
When I looked over the edge right here at the creek, I do it 5 times a day, and there wasn't an orange jumpsuit 2 hours ago, and there was an orange jumpsuit laying right there on the ground. And then I could hear some splashing in the water.
He says he immediately went to call 911.
Well, straight back in the house, I said, we got the guy. He's got to be right here. We've got him.
Law enforcement showed up to his Rockland home on Zion Court minutes later.
There was probably, over 20 guys with guns drawn standing right here on this deck and looking over this fence at the time.
Looking over at Eric Abril, found in his boxers with the chain around his waist still left over from the restraints he was able to get out of during his escape.
The whole Placer County is relieved now, so it's a big deal.
Sanchez says he was surprised Abril was still in this area. We know this spot is maybe less than 2 miles away from the hospital where he escaped. And if he was walking along the creek here, it's maybe half a mile from the last place he was caught on surveillance video at 3:39 yesterday morning. So again, more than 24 hours, and he didn't go very far.
It's been 14 hours since Eric Abril escaped from custody at Sutter Roseville Medical Center.
The Placer County Sheriff's Office says at around 3 this morning, Abril was able to walk out of the hospital. According to radio dispatch, he was last seen heading towards Highway 65, and then 40 minutes later, he was spotted about 3 miles away in Rockland on Rainier Court.
Abril was first arrested by Roseville police back on April 6th, charged with kidnapping, murder, and attempted murder. The CHP says they were serving a search warrant on Abril at his mother's home in Roseville when he opened fire, shooting a CHP officer. Investigators say Abril ran into Mahany Park, taking 2 people hostage and killing one of them. County Sheriff Wayne Wu says Abril was admitted to the hospital on Thursday for an unknown reason.
Luke and Alicia, this is the policy. It's about 4 pages long, included in a much bigger document that outlines what the Placer County Sheriff's Office Corrections Division must do when they bring an inmate to a hospital. Now, in simple terms, what this policy says, it's on a case-by-case basis. Repeatedly avoiding answering questions about the specific security surrounding him. ABC 10 reviewed the Sheriff's Office Guarding of Inmates policy, which shows it is on a case-by-case basis, saying the following requirements will be followed. An evaluation of the inmate's charges, criminal history, and medical condition shall be done by the on-duty jail shift sergeant to determine whether the need for a guard is required. The determination shall be based on the prisoner's ability to escape and the threat posed to the hospital staff and the general public. There are instances in California law where a guard can be removed from an inmate for medical purposes, but it is unclear if this was one of those situations. Now, this document also highlights that the inmate can have public visitations, but we're not aware if anyone came to visit Abril since he came to the hospital, again, on July 6th. Now, we wanted to find out what other agencies across the region, what their policies are. Now, sources within the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office tell us their policy is a little bit more concrete, is that they must have 2 guards per inmate at a hospital at all times.
3:30 this morning, that peace was disturbed when McCrossan saw this person creeping around his yard. McCrossan's neighbor across the street also saw the same person walking around his front yard. He called law enforcement.
Within a couple minutes, they called me and said, vacate your premises, because they had a SWAT team, Rockland PD, Roseville PD. Everyone was here.
Many questions tonight about how Eric Abril was able to escape Sutter Roseville Medical Center. Also, how many deputies were guarding him? Was he chained to the hospital bed? Questions we will continue to press for answers on.
We believe he was last seen wearing belly chains and orange jail pants. No shirt, no shoes. There was a brief foot pursuit with a deputy who was on scene. Unfortunately, Abril was still able to escape. I know there's a lot of questions surrounding this case, specifically surrounding the circumstances regarding the escape. Quite frankly, I have a lot of questions as well. I can assure the community that when the time is right, there will be a thorough investigation into how this was able to occur and whether there are any policy violations. But quite frankly, right now, all of our resources are focused on making sure we get Abril back into custody. Clearly, we consider Abril a very dangerous fugitive. We have over 200 law enforcement officers on scene right now helping us in this search. These are local, state, and federal resources from throughout our region.
When you said 24-hour surveillance at the hospital, what does that mean exactly? Like, how many guards are there guards, or is he chained? What does that exactly mean, 24-hour surveillance at the hospital?
Since he is in custody, that he has a deputy assigned to that inmate 24 hours.
And so is he normally shackled, handcuffs? What would that mean?
And as part of the investigation and our internal investigation, we want to ensure that all policies and procedures that were followed.
But when the sheriff mentioned belly chains, like, did he mean like had shackles on, or what does that mean?
And again, under the investigation, we'll find out, make sure that all the information as far as with the belly chains and everything else were followed out. But again,
Considering his background, you have a guy that's suspected of murdering someone, taking hostages, shooting elderly people. Was there more than one guard that was assigned to him inside the hospital for whatever procedure he was having done?
so again, that's part of that under investigation part. We'll let everyone know once we're done, and let everyone know what's happening with our current investigation.
Generically speaking, if you have a murder suspect in custody and he's being seen for any kind of medical treatment, generically, how many deputies would be assigned to that person?
So again, it's a case-by-case basis, but right now I'm not going to comment on that right now.
And can I assume that they're shackled up? You said belly, so they have...
So again, what I want to do is really push out to the public, reach out to us, get us the information that we have. We'll provide as much information as we possibly can.
I guess what I want to know is, how was he able to escape?
That's under the investigation right now. We'll let them know later on.
I work at Roseville Hospital, so I know the security is really tight when we have inmates, so I was really shocked that someone actually escaped or got out.
That's the question on everyone's mind. How could this have happened?
Well, it makes you wonder, whether they're doing a good job watching these people.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. As you all know, at approximately 12:34 hours today, we were able to take inmate Eric Abril back into custody. Thank the community of Placer County. This has been a trying couple days, not just for our organization, but it's been especially trying for this community. And their patience and continued support for our organization is appreciated. An alert homeowner who was taking his dog out, the dog started barking. He saw somebody moving in that greenbelt area, and in fact, it was Abril. Law enforcement in the area descended quickly, and Abril was safely taken into custody. And when he was taken into custody, he was clothed in only his jail boxers, and he still had the belly chains around his waist, although his hands were no longer affixed in the handcuffs. But the fact that Abril was able to defeat some of his restraints. And as we conduct this investigation, we'll not only look into the circumstances around the escape, but we'll also review our policies, our procedures, and our equipment, quite frankly, to ensure that something like this never happens again. Like I said, that investigation is ongoing. We will get to the bottom of it. The deputy, there are parallel investigations, and now that we conduct this internal audit, review, and investigation of the deputy, this deputy does have due process rights as well, and he hasn't even been interviewed. So I would hate to speculate on what this deputy's actions were or were not prematurely.
Why has he not been interviewed yet?
He's been noticed to be interviewed, and an interview will be conducted when we can coordinate it.
Is he still fully employed by the department? Is he still on active duty?
He is.
Is there a chance that he...
I'm going to take somebody else's question. You got to allow other people. Thank you. Yeah, so Abril was initially taken to the hospital by ambulance, so there was some type of medical episode. The decision was made by jail medical staff that he needed to be transported to the hospital and transported by ambulance, not just in the back of a patrol car. Sheriff's deputy, he is assigned a body camera. I can't confirm whether he was wearing it or not. The jail classification, we have learned this over the last 24 hours, that when Abril first came into custody, he was classified as a 2-officer move. I can say that sometime during the month of May, our classification unit downgraded him to a 1-officer move, and that'll be part of this entire review of how that occurred, what prompted that decision, what levels of approval that decision needs to go through, and we'll make course corrections if that's needed to ensure that this never happens again. Yeah, I would say that as the sheriff of this entire county, I take full responsibility for this incident, quite frankly. I take the protection of this community seriously, And quite frankly, as the sheriff who's in charge of the jail and the custody of prisoners, this should have never happened. And I can guarantee you this, we'll make whatever course corrections we need to, and I'll take full responsibility, and we'll make sure it never happens again. At least not while I'm the sheriff, I can guarantee you that.
Sheriff, do you believe that staffing levels could have been part
He left through a door, and a deputy did give chase. Lost him, from what I understand, somewhere in the parking lot. With over 60 leads we followed up on yesterday, none of them really turned out to be credible. So while we remained in that area of the point last seen, we also had to investigate all these other tips and people reporting different things, or somebody suspicious in the area. Those were all followed up on, and then as we regrouped today to get our plan of attack, everything led us back to that Rainier Court area, which is why we started that. It would be speculative on my part. I don't know what actions the deputy did or did not do that could have violated policy or not. But I can assure this community that if policies were violated, appropriate disciplinary action will be taken in proportionate to whatever the violation was. I mean, nothing's off the table. We're very open-minded to look at this incident. We'll learn from it. We'll be better, and we'll ensure it never happens again. Have a special place here in Placer County. We have some of the highest quality of life and some of the lowest crime rates, and I want to preserve that for not only the community, but my family, my children, my grandchildren that are part of this community.
Wu says he'll prioritize recruiting and retention of qualified employees while partnering with the community, work collaboratively with other law enforcement agencies, and focus on department transparency. He has the endorsement of the retiring sheriff Devin Bell and his predecessor Ed Bonner, among other area elected officials.